Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this webinar. Stakeholder of the islands, focus on the sustainability of islands. Thank you for joining this webinar where we will explain, just recap what Green Islands is doing and present the new structure and of the Observatory of Green Islands and launch the first task forces that make the new structure more concrete on the different topics of circular economy. I'd like to show the agenda of today. We have 1 hour. The first 20 minutes will be dedicated to an introduction and the presentation of the new structure. Then we will give the floor to the industry associations that are partner of the different task forces in order to explain better the topics that we have selected together, and that will be the focus of the work of the next months. And then there will be a Q&A session. And while there will be the presentation, I invite all of you to write some question or write some question so the speakers can have a look and answer afterwards. And at 3 o'clock, we will end the webinar. On the meanwhile, I would like to introduce the Green Islands team here today. I'm here with Emilio Gabrielli, who is a partner and technical partner of Green Islands, specialist on water. Emilio Gabrielli is a member of the Honorary Council of the International Destination Association and has been founder and one of the founder and chairman of the organization, and today is also global ambassador for the Australian Water Association. There is welcome Emilio. With me there is also Attilio Piattelli, specialist on energy and mobility and waste. Is especially on circular economy for the islands, which is really the topic that we tackle in our observatory, and coordinate the technical team. And with us there is also Bruno Barreca from our technical department that will help me with this presentation. Just a few words on Green Islands. Green Islands is an innovative organization, as many of you know, that is focused on the self-sufficiency and sustainability of islands worldwide. Our goal is to test island solution that, as well as the new economic and lifestyle models that we can apply everywhere, also in the mainland. And our goal is to enable the cooperation between the island stakeholders, starting from the local authorities, business, citizens, and the academia. Our activities goes from the workshop, the conference, to the app training, the observatory I was mentioning, and as well the global index. We started already in 2014 with a number of international conferences where we did manage running from an island to another, from mainly Europe until now, try to let institutions meet with the innovation providers. And this has been our goal since the beginning of Green Islands. In order to spread the words on the best practices, we have created already in 2015 an awards with a jury made of the Global Water Partnership, the European Commission, the European Parliament, the CPMR that represent the islands governments in Europe, the Observatory on Tourism for the Islands Economy, IRENA, in order to award the best projects and as I was saying before, disseminate. But as you may understand, it's difficult. Islands, we have 500,000 islands in the world. We are talking about circular economy, so many topics. And so we have launched a web app, a sort of LinkedIn of the islands stakeholder, in order to facilitate the communication dissemination. Of course, with our academy, we have done a lot of technical support. The core of our activity is the observatory that aggregates stakeholders to match needs with solutions, to produce content studies to address strategies and policies, and originate a project defining business models, and also looking for financing opportunities, and of course promote the cooperation between governments and corporate. We have created an index, Bruno will tell you more later on, an index in order to give a rating on the island sustainability and on the single topics, and also a global overall score on the islands. And after this introduction, let's go to the new structure. This is the real news after almost 2 years of the observatory work. As I was saying before, we have so many stakeholders around energy, water, mobility, waste, agriculture, sustainable tourism, blue growth. That is important to create a minimum structure, to create focus on specific topics, and also in the same way work in a very organized way. So on one side, we have the Island Advisory Committee, which is made of local authorities of business, city and academia, which are of the islands. And this committee, of course, the committee will be made of the Association of Islands Governments and not of the single islands, because we want to have, as well as the Association of Islands Economies and Industries, in order to have a number of no more than 10 people that can address the island's needs, and have a dialogue with the strategy scientific committee that again we want to have not a huge number, but really representative of a global scientific institution or industry association that can really transpose the island's need from the Island Advisory Board and refer the outcomes to the working groups. So the working groups, I was saying before, there will be the working groups on the main topics, energy, water, mobility, waste, agriculture, blue growth that is missing here, but is very important, and sustainable tourism, where policy and finance will be transversal to the different working groups, and so all the industry associations that from the different sectors, R&D institutes and academia, and GTI Observatory, Green Island, and corporate members can take part on the different working groups that create the task forces. Task forces, when you talk, just an example about energy, then sometimes each single topic that can be, like in this case that you will see later on, offshore wind, etc., you need really a specific focus, a group of people that can deepen the topic. So luckily with the pandemic, we are going online very well. Online meetings, report, workshop, webinar will be really the activity of the structure. Of course, Island can join us, Island members. We have 3 kind of level. The entry level will allow islands to be grouped in a group of islands with a similar needs. This will allow islands to do economy of scale when they want to acquire or adopt a solution, of course, participate to training, and have access, of course, to a reserved area where we are is already existing, where we are bringing and putting there in a very organized way all the content, the presentation, best practice, etc. The intermediate will have on top of the entry level the assessment with a score of the different sectors with a global index, and we will do a report on what are the gaps in order to improve the scores, and we'll have, of course, with us some anyway a discussion on how to really anyway improve their level. And then, of course, the Green Island member will have a deep dive with a phase 1 and phase 2, where in the phase 1 we identify the priorities of the islands and do some high-level feasibility analysis of potential project on the different sectors that can be done in the island. There will be in the phase 2 a sort of a call of proposals where the solution providers can candidate. And of course, our goal is also to find the best business model and financial opportunities, supporting maybe also the island to participate to tenders, or maybe some project makes sense without any public support, and it will be very important. Also, of course, corporates can join us, of course, being part, of course, of the origination of the project, and supporting the islands market, and of course the taking part to the coalitions that we might build in order to help the islands to participate to some financial opportunities. And there are different levels of membership as well for the islands. This is a chart of the actual Digital Observatory members and partners already joined us from so the islands that we are already analyzing, the Green Island member, the organization joining the institution of the islands, some corporates, research institute, industry associations that are a member of the observatory. Just a few words on what we have done. Of course, our goal is also to change the regulation, legislation, and try to influence, let's say, for the benefit of the islands, of course, some regulation, legislation, or recommendation that start from EU or from United Nations, etc. And for instance, with the CPMR Island Commission, we have built an island structure dialogue with the EU institutions, and we are at the moment that we started already some years ago, but now we are working on the green recovery plans, and the national climate and energy plans. We have done the phase 1 in 3 islands, Crete, Helgoland, and in Germany, and Favignana in Italy, and with some outcomes. Maybe Bruno, you can help me in summarize the outcomes, the key outcomes from this workshop. Bruno, are you there?
Yes, of course, Gianni. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody, Italian time zone. And here in this slide, we reported the key outcomes from the GTI Observatory Island meetings. And for what concerns Crete, we emphasize the need for the island to hybridize the 3 thermal plants with renewables, and also to implement some projects about waste field. Then, for what concerns Favignana, we performed a techno-economic analysis of the so-called minor island decree, that is an incentivation decree in the form of a feed-in tariff, and we also studied the possibility to extend this policy to the other EU member states. Then desalination for Favignana could be the key, the answer to secure a more reliable and cost-effective water supply in order to replace the tankers and not always reliable submarine pipeline. For what concerns Helgoland, in conclusion, the use of fossil fuels for district heating is more convenient than the thermal use of electricity because of policy regulation that need to be updated, of course. And also we found very important to investigate the reuse of the effluent from the new wastewater treatment plant, and also the possibility of implementing some new electric vessels in order to connect the two islands. Please, Gianni, next. So here I'll give you some more insights about the brand new GTI Observatory Global Index methodology that we developed at Screening the Islands with the collaboration of Politecnico di Milano. So we created a scientific questionnaire. We sent it to the islands, which returned us some technical data, which were processed in 5 main thematic areas. And in order to see how important each area is, we performed also an analysis of the EU investments within the framework of Horizon 2020 program. And we can see in the lower part of the slide the result of this distribution of weight that is also confirmed by the distribution of the EU greenhouse gas emissions by sector in year 2018. Please, next. Here instead we have reported the detail of how we calculated each subscore for each thematic area, and for what concerns the energy, we took into account, of course, both electricity and thermal energy, water, production, distribution, and treatment. Mobility takes into account the percentage of electric vehicles, sorry, Johnny, okay, and the presence of a developed charging infrastructure. Waste, separate collection, and the environment in the end evaluates the most important initiatives of environmental interest. Next, Johnny, thank you. So here we reported the results of a case study for the island of Helgoland. In the left, there's a chart representing the ecological footprint of the island, and we can see how energy is the most important, most significant item in this sense. On the right, we reported the score for each section, and just not to go so much in detail, I report the fact that energy has a good score because Helgoland exploits the high rest penetration of northern Germany, but still employs fossil fuels to fulfill the thermal demand, as I quoted before. So, Gianni, I think I can give you back the ball. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So very quickly, because I'd like to give the floor to the relevant speakers. Ongoing activities with the pandemic in the Islands Observatory, we stress a lot the digital tools and in order to support the island's economy and the recovery plan, the green recovery plan, and we started with a survey trying to understand the problem of islands and the possible suggestions in order to support to overcome to the pandemic. We have done a webinar on the EU funds, and we have done another webinar on island tourism and the pandemic from a global perspective with the relevant speakers. Now we are starting with the online task forces, which is the key topic of today. And this path of the task forces will bring us to the convention and end of November 25-26, where we will bring all these results that of the work we have done. As I was saying before, the task forces will be organized. We'll have three online, at least 3 online meetings and reports with the outcome of the meetings endorsed by all the task force members, and the report will be presented in the convention. These are the beginning anyway. We are starting today thanks to the great support of the industry association with different topics on energy, tourism, agriculture, and water. I'd like to start with the energy, with the task force on floating offshore wind power, focus on Mediterranean, and this task force will be in cooperation with Wind Europe, and here we have the honor to have Lisette Ramirez, offshore analyst, that will say a few words about the importance of this topic. Lisette, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, very well.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for extending this invitation to Wind Europe. Of course, for those of you who don't know Wind Europe is the voice of the wind industry. So formerly, we were called European Wind Energy Association before. That means we have over 400 members that are active across 35 countries. And this includes, let's say, all of the supply chain that you need to basically do the wind energy projects. So we have from developers, component suppliers, research institutions, and yeah, many other components as well. So as I was mentioning, we're active in coordinating especially the policy and communications and research as well. So this means we bring together the industry to discuss the topics that are key and strategic to meeting the targets set by the European Commission in the European Union. So of course, why then is offshore wind, and in this case, floating wind, so important for the Greening the Islands initiative? So the European Commission in 2018, by the end of 2018, launched a report that says that to reach climate neutrality by 2050, we will need between 230 to 450 gigawatts of offshore wind in Europe. Today, we have 23 gigawatts, so that's roughly 20 times more than the amount that we have today, between 10 to 20 times more. And from these 450 gigawatts, we see that most of it will be bottom fixed, but there's going to be also a large amount of floating wind. So why do we need floating wind? Because of course there are areas that don't have access to shallow waters. This is like more than 50 meters water depth. So we realize that to realize this vision, we will need between 100 to 150 gigawatts on floating wind. So this is a massive expansion. Today, we have less than 1% in capacity in floating wind in Europe. And also related to the Mediterranean, and why is it so important in South European waters? That is because we see that according to the distribution of the resources on where it's attractive to build these wind farms, but also where is the demand located, we see that at least 70 gigawatts will be needed in the Mediterranean Sea. So of course, there are big steps to be done. And so Wind Europe is taking part in this task force so to help enabling the conditions. This, of course, includes technical, regulatory, market developments for the takeoff of floating offshore wind technologies in the Mediterranean Sea.
Thank you very much, Liz. And of course, in the task force, we'll join some islands that would like to make some pilots anyway and bring the experience. Thank you very much. And to Wind Europe. Then we have the other energy task force, the EU regulatory framework on batteries and their contribution to islands decarbonization. We have Francesco Gattiglio, Director and EU Affairs and Policy of Eurobat, and then Jacopo Tossoni, Policy Officer of EASE, which is also the Association on Storage. And so Eurobat is more focused on the producers, and EASE is of course the association focused on the storage systems. So Francesco would like to comment on the task force.
Yes, thank you, Gianni, and good afternoon, everyone. As Gianni said, I'm Francesco Gattiglio, the Director of EU Affairs and Policy at Eurobat. For those who don't know Eurobat, we are the Association of European Automotive and Industrial Battery Manufacturers. So we represent all companies manufacturing batteries in Europe. So we really have a European footprint among our members. In terms of applications, of course, batteries can take different forms. We work on automotive and industrial batteries, meaning all batteries that go in a vehicle, so from the starter battery to the battery for plug-in and electric vehicles, and on industrial batteries, which include, of course, batteries for the storage of energy at every level of the grid. Now, as you can imagine, these batteries have a tremendous amount of potential to decarbonize the energy and transport system of islands. In terms of mobility, I think it's quite clear. It doesn't take too much to understand that electric vehicles can really decarbonize the transport system of islands, all considering all the expenses to bring fuel to the islands. In terms of energy storage, we are aware that renewables, being it wind, solar, or even marine energy, are abundant and widespread in islands. However, this energy is not always available at every time of the day. So when renewables are not available in islands today, you have to plug in diesel generators, which are of course quite expensive and polluting, above all in these systems. With batteries, we can overcome these hurdle quite easily. Besides, there is also a clear interaction between the batteries of the car and renewables, because batteries in a very well designed system can also work as a support for renewables. So we are aware that there is a lot of potential, and the next 2-3 years will be quite crucial, because the Commission will propose a new batteries regulation in October this year. This new regulation will replace the Batteries Directive, and it will regulate how these batteries are produced and managed at the end of their life. They will also include new measures regarding the carbon footprint of these batteries to make sure that they are produced in a sustainable way. They will look at recyclability, so to make sure that they are recycled and they are recycled to the highest possible standards. And they will provide also information to consumers and users. So we believe that island systems should definitely have a look at this regulation, and we think that this task force is a great opportunity to do so.
Thank you very much, Francesco. And we have Jacopo Tossoni from EASE as well on this topic.
Yeah, Francesco very well put forward the rationale behind this task force. From my side, good afternoon, everyone. I work for EASE, the European Association for Storage of Energy, and to briefly introduce EASE, we are a member-based association, and we represent almost 50 members that are active across the entire energy storage value chain. So from TSO to DSO, but also manufacturers, research centers, and university. And we are technology neutral, so we look at all the energy storage technologies and the different services and applications that they provide. As I said, as Francesco very well explained, islands are key for the decarbonization, not only because they show us the way forward, they can be lighthouses for the energy transition, but because they they teach us a bit about what we can do also from an mainland perspective. And indeed, this is a crucial timing from a battery perspective. A lot of regulatory activity here in Brussels. The new battery regulations promises to be way more comprehensive and to go more and more into details compared to previous pieces of legislation. And indeed, it's key for us to foster the business case for energy storage, in this case, electrochemical storage, by having the policymaker understand what are the priorities and how to foster the business case. We see that energy storage system can really contribute to decarbonizations. The examples that Francesco put forward are very, very spot on. Indeed, if we want more renewable into the system, we really need to look into this.
Thank you very much, Jacopo. Indeed, storage is key anyway for the energy transition of islands, and what we experiment in the islands can be exported. And anyway, while anyway, very important, the connection of energy and water, and the task force on solar energy, water recycling and desalination hybrid systems is a so important nexus between energy and water. It's really a great opportunity to reduce the cost of water, which is depending on energy. And here we have the great cooperation with the International Desalination Association that represent really the water sector, the water industry worldwide. And we have an honor to have with us Shannon McCarthy, which is the Secretary General of IDA. And Dave Rene, the Coordinator of Technical Committee, will represent Global Solar Council. I got a message that is a problem in connecting now. Is in California, but I will say a few words anyway to complement the Shannon intervention. Shannon, are you there?
Yes, Johnny, I'm here. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for organizing this important webinar. I'm pleased to introduce everyone to the IDA and the Observatory Task Force addressing solar-powered hybrid desalination and water recycling systems for islands. First, just a little bit about the IDA. For over 40 years, IDA has been a global hub for the worldwide desalination and water reuse industry, promoting environmentally responsible, sustainable practices in desalination and advanced water treatment, water reuse and recycling solutions to optimize a cost-effective circular water economy. Our members, we have members throughout 60 countries around the globe, and they represent both public and private sector entities. We conduct various events throughout the year, but our flagship event is a World Congress on Desalination and Water Reuse held every 2 years. Relevant to greening the islands is the IDA commitment to advocate for incorporating renewable energy to power both large and small scale systems for islands and their water needs to reduce the CO2 footprint. By 2050, the global need for energy will double, as you all probably know, and the water demand will increase by 50%. So these systems are very important for creating water sustainability around the globe. Desalination and advanced water reuse and recycling solutions offer this circular approach to a water economy for anywhere needed. Islands, arid regions, overpopulated urban areas, and to meet both irrigation and industrial requirements. Both offer sustainable water resources to create resilient solutions to social, economic, and environmental needs. And this task force, which we're just developing now, is to focus on the feasible, innovative technical solutions being tested in the islands and that can ensure water availability at competitive costs. So thank you for allowing me to make that introduction of the task force.
Thank you very much, Shannon. And of course, this is just the start, but anyway, many other industry association can and industries can be interested to join because also when we talk about hybrid system, the storage component is also quite important for the availability of energy, especially when we talk about remote locations like islands. And of course, part Global Solar Council, we have as member of the observatory of the Green Islands Observatory many industry associations from the solar sector, from Solar Power Europe, UNEF, Italia Solare, and Appia. Anyway, this is a topic, not topic for all the solar industry. And as you said, Shannon, anyway, the water technology is evolving so fast, and the market of desalination water treatment is doubling in the next years. So there will be a lot of energy demands, and the question is how we are going to serve the spread of the water technology with a clean and low-cost energy producing. Thank you very much, Shannon. And then we have agriculture, of course. This task force has been inside Green Islands promoted by Insular. I have to say that Insular is the organization, but Georgia Sunitis will explain better now, but is really the organization that represents the companies, the economy of the islands, and of course will be involved in all the task forces, but this has been one of the task forces that has been also directly promoted by them, by Insular, and agriculture see the nexus with energy and water. And I know that is of interest of IDA, of all the solar and wind industry associations. And maybe George, I don't know if you want to say a few words about Insular and this topic and your support on involvement in our observatory. George, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important webinar, and congratulations for your initiative. I think it's really an holistic approach for the whole problems of islands, not only European but worldwide islands. In fact, Insular is as you said, is the network of insular chambers of the European Union. We have about 25 members, chambers, especially in particular in the Mediterranean area, but also we have a Guadeloupe chamber and Réunion chamber, both French chambers, so remote chambers. Our main task is, to promote, our members, the members of the chambers, which are companies, as you said. So companies in all areas of economy. Agriculture also is, very important for us, especially because agriculture is in decline in islands. We have already worked with the European Commission in certain areas of agriculture, especially in quality schemes. What does it mean? It means that, in islands, there are not only quality products, but unique products, meaning that there are products that nowhere exist as in certain islands. I'm giving you two or three examples. Is, let's say, the mastic. Mastic is a resin, product coming from a tree in Chios, where we are now, I mean, producing different products, I mean, from this farming product. We have, I mean, other products in other islands, as for example, the tweed product in the Scotland Island is in, I don't remember the name of the island, Stornoway. It's a Harris tweed in Stornoway Islands. So you see that there are specific and quality products and unique products. So our idea is to give to them a label, and we have worked with the European Commission and IPTS in order to find maybe a label named product of island farming. We are there, we are working with them, and maybe this is one of our, I mean, let's say, agenda of the task force of agriculture. But there are also other issues to examine. Is the food security, especially for remote islands, not, I mean, especially European, but other islands like in the, I mean, in oceans like Vanuatu Islands, all these very remote islands. So there is an agenda to explore, I mean, all problems that islands face in agriculture, in the primary sector.
Thank you very much, George. Indeed, islands can live not only of tourism, but also of anyway, other economies like agriculture, and agriculture can be, as you said, for food security, but also exporting, let's say, agriculture product for islands, creating a brand, as you said, but the islands has a problem of space, has a problem of water, and of course, energy that need to support this market. And the last task force is on tourism, sustainable tourism, the island resorts, how to become a green destination and reduce cost while engaging local communities. The Maldives case study. In order to be more concrete, of course, what will study task force is for the globe, but anyway, make a referment on a specific area will help this task force to be more concrete, creating case studies. And with us is supporting the Maldives Integrated Tourism and Development Corporation, which is 100% depending from the Maldivian government. And we have the honor to have the managing director, Mohamed Raid, that will say a few words about the organization and this task force. Please, Mr. Raid.
Assalamu alaikum, and good evening everyone across the globe, and welcome to the webinar organized by the GTI jointly by several other parties. My name is Mohamed Raid, Managing Director of MITDC. This is a great initiative by the GTI, and we believe that this series will bring a huge impact to the sustainable tourism by creating the most innovative topics for the island nations. The island resorts, how to become a green destination and reduce cost while engaging local communities, the Maldives case study. This is the topic which I have been received from GTI. As everyone is doing so, I will also give a brief about the Maldives and tourism within the 3 minutes time frame. Of course, COVID-19 pandemic has brought a detrimental effect on global tourism, particularly affecting countries like the Maldives. 70% of our GDP is from the tourism industry, and we heavily rely on the import of all goods. As a result, we are facing several hardships a country will face in a situation like this. We have successfully opened our borders on 15th of July, and we hope that we recover our economy sooner. Maldives Integrated Tourism Development Corporation is a 100% Maldives government state-owned enterprise and has been mandated with several development of integrated tourism in local inhabited islands in the Maldives. This includes development of guest houses, city hotels, and integrated tourism zones within the island communities. Next slide. Maldives tourism is divided into three main segments: luxury tourism, that is one island, one resort concept; local tourism, that is development of tourism facilities in inhabited islands where people are living; and cruising tourism, that is vessels. MITDC basically focus on development of local tourism. Maldives has more than 1,190 islands where only 200 islands people are living or inhabited. Some islands are far from the capital Male, and the transport network is still a challenging obstacle. MITDC will be acting as a development company to develop sustainable tourism and feasible with these rural communities and leasing back those facilities to the people. Within the sustainable model, it creates an economic activity within the community, and in return, the people enjoys the luxury of tourism. Next slide. Maldives helm as the jewel in the crown of the world tourism. We believe we have achieved this by maintaining a sustainable business model within our industry. For the past 48 years as a tourist destination, we have not compromised environmental issues with development projects, protecting the paradise while we develop a responsible tourism. I would say Maldives, being a global leader in the sustainable development, has achieved several milestones in other industries as well. For example, our fishing industry is pole and line or dolphin friendly, is one of the most sustainable method of fisheries in the world. Next slide. This is the northern tip of the Maldivian island, Horafushi Island. Approximately 1,800 people are living in this beautiful island, and a small domestic airport is being under construction. MITDC proposed to develop an integrated tourism zone in this portion of Horafushi that will bring a ginormous boom to the local economy. Our proposal is to develop this zone as a green destination while reducing the cost of energy, water, waste, and mobility. Next slide. Thank you so much for being giving me the opportunity and a brief presentation, and thank you so much for being in the task force, and looking forward for a very fruitful venture with GTI. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aid. Indeed, yes, you are proposing in the task force a very interesting new models where we have not one owner of the island, but many hotels. And also, anyway, in our in the task force, as you said, we will discuss about island resort itself, the traditional one, but also in how to create this circular economy that can promote the sustainable tourism, and while engaging the local community, because as you mentioned, around there are thousands of workers of island resorts that lives in the neighboring islands. And of course, the experience of the sustainability of the island resort can be exported in the islands close to the island resort where the workers are living. So this point will be also very, very important. That will affect, of course, the utilities of the islands. I know that the utility of Stelco, Fenac are connected, of Maldives, and of course we will really need their support in order to tackle also the technology and regulatory matters about this. So I think we are fine with the time, and there will be some minutes for some questions from the floor. There is a question on how can island communities, let's say civil society, be involved in the work of GTI, the Green the Islands? How do you ensure that you are matching the interests of the islands communities and not just island policymakers and business stakeholders with the resources available? So is a question from Francesco Sindico, co-director of the stress cycle center for environment law and governance. A very good question, Mr. Sindico. And in fact, as I was saying before, our goal is to engage all the, the 4 pillars of the island stakeholders. On one side, the island institutions, which include, of course, first the governments, the islands academia, the business, and with the innovation providers, and of course the communities. First of all, associations of citizens of islanders will be welcome to join the observatory. And as I was saying before, we have created an island advisory committee that will represent really the interests of the islands, where the mayors of the association of the governments of islands will be there, but also the association of islanders can join in order to bring the interests of the islands. So of course, we cannot have the single islanders joining, but we need association, because we need to group and the interest, and of course to create a mechanism which facilitate, of course, facilitate bring the voice of the islanders, but in a joint voice, let's say. So this will be our goal, to really do the interest of the islands. Also in our process, when we run the Green Island membership phase 1 and phase 2, in the phase 1 we create a local task force together with the island government and with all the key bodies, including the Association of Islanders, and we try to identify the key project to be originating in an island without involving the beginning the innovation providers, because anyway, it's very important that the phase 1 is independent from technology. Only when the islands has identified the key project, of course, innovation providers, members can present the proposal. Of course, our goal is with that tool, through the task forces and through the reserved area, anyway, to bring knowledge of all the members what is the latest technology. And in this case, the industry associations and the corporates that will join us as an important role of really update the scientific community, the island stakeholders in the observatory about the latest technology. And this is the goal of the task forces. So this is very important, because policy and legislation need to reflect really the innovation available, and we need to bring with the work of the task forces really the key information that will allow decision makers to take proper decisions. So this is a very important point. So I don't know if anyway, there are other comments also from the industry association that are here, and before concluding the webinar, if there are other comments. And of course, I give the floor to anyone who want to add some points. Okay, if there are not other points which are very important.
Gianni,
Yes.
sorry, there is a question coming from for the potential of floating solar as a key driver for renewables in islands.
Yes. Maybe I can give the floor to Lisette Ramirez on this point.
Well, I can elaborate something, but this is related to floating solar.
Floating solar,
Yeah.
yes.
No, sorry, I was confused. Yes, floating solar. No, for sure. Anyway, in the floating solar, the potential huge. One of the point which is very important when we talk about islands is the space. No, first of all, islands as many islands has not enough space. Even if more than expected, because many, if we have done as Green the Islands many analysis counting the roofs of the available roofs, the good roofs for solar, and the reality we discovered that the reality the space and the potential for anyway solar energy is a lot, but floating solar together with the floating wind is a solution for islands. And we will talk about, as I was saying before, these are the first task forces, but we can, our goal is to add other task forces in the observatory, and the potential is huge, of course. As is in the case of wind, there are some circumstances that need to be there in order to have a floating solar that makes sense, but already there are tenders for a floating solar system. I recall one of World Bank for the Maldivians, for Maldives, and many others that, so we have already a lot of cases. Global Solar Council recently has done a webinar that on floating solar, so the potential is really, really huge, and I take this question as an invitation to discuss about floating solar in the observatory. So thank you very much. The potential is huge, and resolve the problem of space of the island. So thank you for this point. So I don't know if there are other points. Otherwise, we are almost concluding the webinar that will be available also first on Zoom in our website, and also then on YouTube. I'd like to...
Gianni, there is another question. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes.
Which is any role for biogas and bio-LNG? Any role for LNG in general?
Emilio, yes, I can answer to this question. I would say that these are all questions related to energy. And what I would say is that we will think about to have, different task forces that will concentrate on these issues, because they are all very important. And so we started with the first two task forces on energy, one for floating wind and the other one on storage. And then we will implement with new task forces, because I agree, these are all very important issues.
Yes, thank you, Attilio. And yes, for sure, we need to consider a mix of energy, a mix of renewables as much as possible. And of course, there will be a transition, and this will be explored. Our goal is really to compare the technologies and also to try to push for the right mix. So I'd like to conclude this webinar, reminding you that...
Gianni,
please.
not speaking. Just I have a general comment.
Please.
On discussion. I mean, as I understand, I mean, the main issue now of the task forces is energy issues, energy matters. Of course, energy now is actually the most important issue, for islands. But in my opinion, in order to have really an holistic approach to all problems of islands, we have to balance a little bit between energy and all other issues. Tourism and agriculture and economy and even transport and accessibility, which is very important for island. So we have to be a little bit attentive on that, and I mean, trying to be, I mean, really balanced discussions between all these matters. This is,
yes, thank you, George. You give me the floor to stress that the observatory is not only for energy, but as I was saying before, is energy, water, mobility, waste, blue growth, agriculture, sustainable tourism, and anyway, at the moment of the 5 task force, 2 are on energy, and we have the others, but others will join. And also mobility, we are discussing with CONEBI also to talk about infrastructure for bicycles as well. So others task forces will join, and we have already 3 task forces that are on other topics like water, tourism, and agriculture. Thank you for very much, George, because it gave me the floor, the opportunity to highlight that it's not only energy. And of course, our goal is to try to find a nexus. And we would like to conclude this year, at least 2020, preparing the floor for next year, of course, but to bring some content, which is our goal in the e-convention. Will be for the first time, will be our 7th edition of Green the Islands International events. It will be Green the Islands e-convention. It will be made of workshops of 2 hours each, more or less, of focus on the themes of the task forces that we have announced today, and the ones that we will announce in the next weeks. And so we will bring the result, and we want to have there the decision makers try to, of course, bring the result made of the task forces. But on the other side, the e-convention will be also an exhibition. So we'll have the opportunity to have a booth, and the islands can have a booth, companies can have a booth, institutions, academia can have a booth, and going to the virtual booth, you can talk with the expositor, and the participant can talk with the expositor and can see videos, materials, scientific documents, and let me say, will be a zero emission event. Where we can really involve all the islands, a wider audience, because without travel cost, you can reach the same goal or similar goal that you reach in a physical event. And so I will invite everybody of you to fix, to put the e-convention, the Green Islands convention in the agenda, and all the partners of the observatory will be, I hope anyway, will be, our goal will be to involve all the observatory members and partners in the e-convention. Of course, there will be, we'll do other physical events next year, but this, in our strategy, we will continue to have digital events, digital exhibition and conference also the next years, alternate with physical meeting, networking meetings. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the industry associations that have believed in the potential of this tool and are making so much efforts for the islands. And thank you to all the participants. Thank you also to the GTI team, anyway, my technical partner and the staff that has organized the webinar. And this is just a start. So this webinar is a starting point. Please follow us and join the Green the Islands Observatory. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.